Alrighty, guys, just jumping in at the front of the episode here, just to mention that there is a few little garbles and pauses and breaks in connection with the internet. As some who have been listening already this year know, I've been a bit frustrated with my internet provider's output dropping quite drastically comparative to last year, making some issues for Jamie and I doing a little Zoom calls for the podcast. So I am at the point that I am changing provider. Will be by the time we record the next episode in a couple of weeks and start the recording for the season proper. I will be trialing a new provider, which, from all reports, will be far more, far more amenable to recording the podcast, making it a good product. So, just wanted to jump into the front end, and so you know that we are aware that it is a little bit annoying, but it isn't. Obviously, the most of the episode you can hear is fine. It's just there's little moments here and there that it does kind of make a little awkward pause in the conversation. So we are aware of it. I am fixing it as I reach the end of my tether with the current provider I'm with right now. But without any further ado, on with the show. Alrighty, good evening. Welcome to the CREEDCAST. It is Sunday, the 15th of February, 9 p.m. here that we are recording a little bit of a licorice all sorts episode tonight with a bit of some of the news around the club before we get into a little bit of chat about our depth of the side, how we're looking here in the middle of February as we look towards the season, which is only a month away for us now. Before I do that, I'm going to bring in my co-host, Jamie, I've started calling him the talent of the podcast because he really is. He brings a lot of good stuff to the podcast, but also outside of the podcast, he's a great family man, and he's got a bit of just something he wants to chat about with you all before we kick off into the podcast regarding his family and just something that's occurred over the last few months and the weekend he's had. So, Jamie, good evening, mate. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, and you really do flatter me with the talent moniker. I'm just as much of a hobbyist and a nuffy as you are, but no, I appreciate it, of course. But yeah, as Dave said, just wanted to go through a little tribute tonight. So appreciate that. Listeners returning from last season may recall my mentioning of health battles my father was facing throughout 2025. To elaborate further, they included cancer of the lung, thyroid, and of the brain. Dad went through so many painstaking courses of treatment. However, nothing made a dent, and unfortunately, in the late hours of Friday night, the 13th of February, my father passed away at Lyle McEwen Hospital at the young age of only 59 years old. Football was a shared passion between myself, my dad, and my brothers. It was our thing, heading to the footy park in the dark days and staying to the end so we didn't let the team down. Then moving on to overall happier times at Adelaide Oval, albeit without that elusive premiership that we all want. Cancer is a scourge on human life, and loss is always a good reminder to hold your loved ones close while they're still with us, as you never know when they may step out the exit door. Footy just won't be the same without him. But knowing Dad, he would want me to push on, ranting and raving at the Oval, admonishing the umpires, acknowledging the agony, but best of all, celebrating the ecstasy. And as well as that, joining Dave to keep speaking the good word of the Port Adelaide Football Club. So, with all of that said, I say Vale, Robert William Oliver, my dad, I'm really going to miss you, mate. Um, that's all I have to say tonight. I appreciate those returning from last season. All the support that we've had from a podcasting point of view, all the connections that we've made. It's what makes footy great. It's why we love it. It's why Dave and I love getting together and doing this, and how our friendship has blossomed since connecting all those years ago. And it's a little bit about what we spoke with Dr. Brett Hill and the other day about family, footy, passion, all the things that I could easily label my dad with. It's just been a terrible time, and anyone who's experienced the same will know what I'm talking about. It's a fair going through that, but ultimately, as what's usually said, once these things end, he's not in pain anymore. And like I said at the end there, he would want us to push on with passion and love for the Port Adelaide Football Club, and that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely, mate. And you've done a really, really good job of a tribute there. And as I said, kind of off the top, you are one of the great family men from as I've gotten to know you, how you are with your young family that you've got there now. And obviously you've spoken with great affection of Robert and obviously your brothers and everyone. You're all really close. And so I know how hard it's hit you. But I also absolutely love that part of kind of that process is to push on with Port Adelaide love and the ranting and raving that is imminent. So I raise my beer to you, your family, and of course Robert tonight. And we'll take a quick break here, and we'll be back to chat about start ranting and raving about Port Adelaide in 2026. Alrighty, back with the CREEDCAST, and we're going to get right into it. Before we get into the lines and all that, we'll run through a few of probably the main news items that has come out in the last couple of weeks. Lots going on at the club, and probably the main thing I think is important as us fans and supporters, and kind of supporting how the club operates at a governance level. We obviously, our previous episode, we talked to one of these nominees for the board in Dr. Brett Hill, and it was a great episode. I encourage you to go back and listen to it. Dr. Brett has certainly put a great case forward for himself, and a lot of these nominees are putting themselves out there on the social medias and whatnot. There's that one again. So for those unaware of what's going on in the ballot process, basically, if you're a member at the end of October last year, paid up member, so you renewed your membership and you're a member in 2025, you should have received an email from the Port Adelaide Football Club with the voting process and probably links to statements from the nominees, which is 10 of them, which I'm about to read out. I will put in the show notes kind of the little link, the kind of article on the Port Adelaide website, the director election facts article, and it's got links to their statements and whatnot. So I'll put that in the show notes. But a brief on it: the voting period is obviously opened from the Friday the 13th of February, closes on Tuesday the 24th. So it's been open over the weekend and closes on Tuesday the 24th. So it gives you another 9 days from now to get your vote in by 5 p.m. Alberton Central Time on Tuesday, the 24th of February. The nominees are Vito Borrello, Michelle Dunstan, Abby Taylor, Kim Downey, Justin Leckie, Louis Leventis, Kirsty D. Gabrielle, Thomas Jonas, Brett Hill, and Ben Haynes. Obviously, Brett Hill, Dr. Brett Hill, who was on the podcast with us. But I encourage you to go look at all their statements and think about your vote and get around it. I did, Jamie, I reading through, I was reading him and kind of like looking for Tom Jonas, and just like, because I was tired, I think I just missed it for a second. And then I was like, oh yeah, Thomas Jonas, I guess that is his name. We've never called him Thomas in ever. Like, I found that quite amusing, but I guess it's the formality of the governance process is his Christian name in Thomas, not just Tom.
Yes. What is your full name, please?
As I yelled at him during the Geelong final in 2020, that's my fucking captain, as he stood up heroically in that game. But that's not his name either. It is Thomas Jonas, apparently. But yeah, he is one of the nominees. Yeah, have you had much of a chance? I haven't had much of a chance to look at other statements yet, but it's one of my plans for a while. I'm on 24 hours of travel tomorrow to look at some of these statements from the others. But it is exciting. It is exciting. And I think probably the process from a previous, a couple of years ago, has kind of enlightened a few more people to actually kind of read into this. You're seeing a lot of talk on social media about this process and kind of what it could mean for the future. And certainly guys like I've seen Brett and Justin's name and a few of the others popping up a lot on social media. So it's really cool to see people kind of engaging with this a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I have looked through them when the email first came through. It is, I mean, it is interesting to see the range of candidates, a bit of diversity with people from different backgrounds. While there are a lot who have a lot of business acumen, finance industry experience, etc., etc. Uh, I need to refresh my memory. Obviously, being a big week in particular for myself and big couple of
Mhm.
weeks for family, a lot has poured out of my head that was once there. So I need to have a good look, and that's why I haven't casted my vote yet. I believe we've got until the 24th, is it?
Yeah, 24th of February at 5 p.m. So basically another just over a week. It's Tuesday the
Yeah.
24th. So yeah, we've got a week, and this episode's going to drop. Probably a lot of people are going to listen to it Monday. As I said, we're recording it Sunday the 15th. So basically, from when you listen to this episode, if you listen to it when it drops, you're going to have more or less a week from now to vote. And I encourage you to really look into the candidates. I find it a really interesting time for the club to try to get the voice that you want on the board, and maybe voices that might push for a little bit more member representation on the board as well. So, but
Mm.
whatever you choose to do, I just encourage you. Whatever obviously there's going to be some notion out there that Tom Jonas is the de facto front runner. Sorry, Thomas Jonas is the de facto front runner, being the known name, former captain and whatnot. But and so he might just get some votes because of that. And if that's the way you vote, at least I just encourage members to utilise their vote. It would be great to see great member turnout in these votes. And yeah, I'm kind of excited to see how it turns out. And I'm genuinely, yeah, I'm not doing my vote until next week, probably somewhere in Edinburgh. I'll be deciding what my vote will be, and I'll be putting some thought into it because I want to make sure, kind of I want a diversity of voices on the board as well. And I think this is what this list of nominees is providing us as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's good to think about it. Like I mentioned in our last episode, it is the luxury that you afford yourself by being a member. If
Mm-hmm.
you are a member, uh, well, I'm a big kind of politics person out, outside of this prison. And I truly believe that your one vote counts. So this isn't
Mm-hmm.
anything different to me. Don't know if it needs clarification, but I'm just going to anyway. We aren't advocating for Dr. Brett Hill. He contacted us of his own volition. As soon as he nominated, it would seem he's basically campaigned for himself, and he's campaigned quite thoroughly. To that, I pay him a lot of credit because obviously he is up against a bit of a popularity contest, it would seem, on face value. But yeah, like I said, I don't know if that needs clarification. He reached out to us. We were happy to give him the platform to chat and do something a bit different to what we usually do, which is good. We
Mm-hmm.
also had an acquaintance of Justin Leckie, who's another nominee, reach out to us to pre arrange another interview, but that didn't come to fruition. But that's okay. So yeah, we would have probably with early enough notice, given that Dave's going away tomorrow, we would have interviewed all the candidates if we had the opportunity to, or if they wanted to.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
just wanted to put that in there. In saying that, I like Brett did say, just think about if you are a member and you are listening to this, just think about what it is that you want in your member elect candidate. Obviously, the high majority of board members currently are AFL enlisted, for want of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, they would be of the, you know, business and administrative background, probably to, keep the T's crossed and dot the lowercase j's. Yeah, but one thing that he did say to me was, or would say to us, sorry, was just having a think about what you wanted out of your member elects, and the potential to maybe push for more member elect
Mm-hmm.
positions is something that that definitely resonates with me. I will note that again, not to advocate for him specifically, but he is the only one, if not one of a couple of people who are kind of pushing for that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't doubt that any of the candidates aren't going in with the best of intentions. Just reading all of their bios, they're all passionate Port Adelaide people and all want what's best for the club. Um, either yeah, from whatever path they've come from. So it's a good time to be a member in that regard. We
Mm.
have a bit of a say about where the club moves from here in some sort of a way.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of a nice little segue into my next point. Uh, the Port Club's back.
It is,
After member
yes.
feedback, apparently is how they've written the
People
press release.
power, member
Yeah,
power,
power and the passion.
power of love.
It's a curious thing, but it's back, and like I. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on it. But like, when the precinct was announced and all those redevelopments happened, I was like, yeah, cool, okay, it's a bit of a little bit like elevated, I guess, in trying to name it. But if it worked, it worked. But ultimately, it seems that they've kind of gone through a lot of restructure in how they're doing it. Have just decided that the Port Club is what people resonate with, and it's certainly what I always look. Just going out of the club, that's what you're talking about, and so you go into the Port Club and kind of wrapping it all up in one neat bow. You're downstairs, you're upstairs, the upstairs running properly again, and everything. It's yeah, I'm not going to miss the precinct name. I always give things a chance on face value, but you could tell kind of as the way things went last year in particular when everything shut down for a while there, it's just like it started to become a bit of a stink on it, I guess, and it's probably a very, very good time.
Mm.
A good time to rebrand or go back to the brand that worked.
Yeah, I agree in regards to your comment regarding the stink over it. I think I'm a person that's open to freshness
Mm.
and rejuvenation if necessary. I do also have, my heart in certain traditions, not necessarily in football, but elsewhere in life. But yeah, if things need a facelift, it's good to give them a facelift. I like, new beginnings for things when it's necessary. And I think when the precinct opened, there was a bit of a buzz because it was something new, and the club had spent all this money and whatnot. But yeah, once they made those changes, I think there was kind of no coming back from that in its
Mm.
iteration, and the club made its mistakes. They've clearly listened and admitted that they've taken a wrong turn there. And there wasn't any possible way forward to keep it in that iteration. On top of
Yeah.
that, it did just get a bit confusing in the way that us being AFLW supporters like we are, going to Alberton and then having to reference the Alberton precinct while also talking about the precinct at Alberton
Yeah.
was a bit jumbled at times.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've returned it to something that is close to the heart of everyone. It's a restaurant at the club. You get a meal, you get a beer, whatnot. In the grand scheme of things, it helps a club financially because you're spending your hard earned right there. But it's just kind of a warm fuzzy for the supporters and the members of the club to kind of harken back to a time where everyone was a bit more happy with the club
Yeah.
and its facilities. I was surprised though; it looks like the old logo as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it surprises me that they didn't even try and refresh that. They've just gone, we're going back to our roots in a way.
Mm.
We've got the lovely venue there. We've got the deck that's amazing
Oh,
to uh,
one of my
to
favorite
reside
places
on and
on
watch the
earth.
football.
I've been to a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
places, but
football,
it's
open training,
yeah.
whatever it may be. Um, but we're just gonna go back and name it to something everyone is much more familiar and much happier with. So yeah, again, not too deep on my end, but yeah, it's good to know that the club has listened and they've made an appropriate change.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's kind of incumbent on us as fans and members, and you don't have to be a member to go there either. If you're just a fan and you just want to go and enjoy the club, but certainly members and everyone get around it. If you're around Alberton, go down and have a meal, have a beer, whatever it may be. I had a few Carlton Zeros while I was watching the internal trial the other night, so which we'll talk about in a little bit, in a little bit more
Boo,
depth, but.
Carlton zeros.
I definitely wanted to go onto the heavier stuff, but the drive back to the Barossa, I was being a responsible human being for once. might surprise some people listening, but yeah, I'm stoked to see it back. You know, just before we move on the logo being the same, I wonder if it's just bring that back, get people back to the familiarity of it, and then I wonder if there's any, you might see a little bit of refreshment there in the future, but probably just people know that logo, so it might just be a very safe move, and yeah, makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm looking forward to having a palmy down there at some point soon, once the season gets underway. Hall of Fame and inductees happened the other night. Some big ones, obviously for us, kind of in our generation, probably the ones that mean that we've watched the most was the one in Matthew Primus getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. It was good, kind of a recognition and a remembrance for me for how powerful he was. Like the rule changes that happened because of Matthew Primus and whatnot, and just a nice little refresher going down memory lane, seeing some of those stats about him. Of course, Russell Johnston, Premiership captain, in that era of the other inductee into the Hall of Fame, which was the 88 to 90 Premiership teams. So a lot of kind of gold edged history, and just great times in our club history, inducted into the Hall of Fame between the individuals as well as those Premiership teams. Kind of just a little bit of fun for me this week, just seeing those pictures, some of the stories come out, and just refreshing the memory of some glorious days in Port Adelaide history that hopefully there'll be some more very, very soon. But it's kind of nice remembering that not all that long ago we were really, really, really powerful as well.
Yeah. Another just kind of I don't know how to put it, but 88 to 90, just to bring it back to my old man again. He was in his early 20s during that period, so high time for him. Much like Dr. Brett in our previous episode, favorite player was Scotty Hodges. So you know, if he had his wherewithal, he would have been over the moon for him. And then that next generation of Port Adelaide with Matty Primus being the captain as well. Everyone loved Matty Primus in those late 90s, but particularly the early 2000s, and everyone was gutted, obviously, with the obvious exclusion from our Premiership team. But a fantastic night, and some legends of the club getting their due rewards for the input that they had on the club. Just seeing Matty Primus inducted, though, it reminded me of when we did our trip through down memory lane for the Patreon members in our incomplete series of the 2004 Premiership year.
It's a Horizon saga right now. For those movie fans out there that are waiting for Kevin Costner to finish his saga, that's us with that one.
That's right. Yeah. But the episode that we did get down was wrapping up or reviewing the home and away season, and just of what could have been in that game against Hawthorn when he kicked 3 goals before he did his knee, and obviously missed the rest of the season. But it's obviously sad, but it is a good kind of story arc for him, obviously going through those dark times with the Port Adelaide Football Club as coach, kind of not walking away, just distancing himself from the club for a bit, and then being kind of reacquainted and now being honoured as a Hall of Fame member. It's a fantastic achievement for him. Beside the others that you mentioned, Russell Johnston, and though the champion 88, 89 and 90 to Premiership teams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I kind of like that some of, as they list the accolades for Matthew Primus, his time as coach is listed there as well. Obviously makes sense that it is, but, for a lot of us, we look back on that time as, the dark days. But he does deserve his, despite the fact that there was a lot of games there that we will never rewatch again unless we're getting like the Clockwork Orange treatment of being forced to
with our eyes just like forced open,
watching us getting smashed by like 140 points by Collingwood or something like that. But the fact that he did endure that time and do his very best at a time that a lot of there's a lot of things going wrong outside of what he could control as the coach of the footy club. So yeah, he deserves his flowers, and I'm very very stoked for him, and obviously those others that did get to enjoy a wealth of success there as well. Speaking of Ruckman getting injured, I texted you, and this I want to preface this, but I'm not making light of Ivan Soldo getting injured. But
But a segue is a segue.
yes, but when I got a notification saying power ruck injury blow, I just about lost my damn mind. And then I opened up the story, and it was a clickbaity headline because then it was Ivan Soldo. And I hate that I reacted this way, but there was relief because there is a depth to this, and I'll bring you in a second. We can talk about it for a minute about the fact that it does actually impact our depth program. The Magpies, he's part of that. He's a part of the system still, but it was a very clickbaity headline that probably was intended to make all of us feel like, oh shit, is it Vicentini or Sweet? And it wasn't either of them. For those of us that the main thing is that our AFL program hits the ground running, and we want Vicentini and Sweet hitting the ground running. And so I feel bad for having that reaction, but I was relieved that it wasn't either of those two. But it does impact our program at the SANFL level, which is obviously symbiotic with the AFL program, and helps develop players, and the SANFL team playing well and being fit makes that team better, and ultimately helps the AFL program as well. So it is actually a disappointing one, certainly for Soldo, who probably just wants to get some decent footy into his legs and whatnot. So I do feel for him at the human being. I know I started that off very light, but it was genuinely how I reacted when I got that clickbaity headline, which I'm more criticizing the headline more than anything, not certainly trying to take a shot at Soldo.
Oh, but in 2026, clickbaity
It got me to
headlines
open
is
that
part and
article, didn't it?
parcel.
Which is
Yeah,
is what they want.
exactly,
So I get it.
exactly. Well, and I didn't even get the notification before I found out. As I said to you, I just so happened to be on Twitter, or I opened my phone, and Twitter was just the last app that I had open, so it was on there, and it refreshed to that kind of post from the Port Adelaide Football Club to say that he was injured, much less ambiguous with his photo being there. But yeah, I agree. I agree. You're definitely not on an island in regards to the relief that you would have felt knowing that it was a depth player. And look, unfortunately for Soldo, came over here with the best of intentions in for the 2024 season.
Yep.
But after his initial run, which was promising to be fair, it just hasn't worked out for him, and he's now been relegated to a depth player. His body has severely let him down on a few fronts over his career, and particularly with the Port Adelaide Football Club, and with the rise of Dante and Sweet kind of wrestling that number one spot. Yeah, it hasn't held him in good stead, and now just not being able to fire a shot at all. Whether there was a miraculous turn of events and he found his way back in. Yeah, we'll never know because his contract runs out at the end of this season. It would surprise me to no end if he actually got picked up on an AFL list again, particularly with the introduction of the ruck rule, where it's less favourable to those big bustling wrestling types. And more favourable to the athletic types. So unfortunate for him. Yeah, in regards to our Magpies program, we are probably going to have to look at something because we're left with, a Jack Whitlock and Ollie Lord, to just off the top of my head, maybe a Jacob Moss potentially, and these are players that we want in other positions on the ground and at most pinch hitting in the ruck. So unfortunate for Soldo. The way that we support our club, when you put on that jumper, we may not agree with whether it be the coach, administration, or the players and certain things that they do, and we can be constructively critical, but we also hope for the best for whoever it may be. And in this regard, it's just ACLs are never good.
Mm, absolutely, yeah. No, feel for him, and I hope the recovery is going swimmingly. Since obviously it's very very fresh still. But one more thing before we get into kind of the main meats of the episode for the last part here. Jez McLennan. Speaking of the Magpies, Jez McLennan has been named the Magpies captain, taking over for Nick Moore, who was captain over the last couple of years. McLennan obviously coming in highly rated from Central Districts last year. Played some decent footy last year as the Magpies had an improved year after a couple of very, very down years. Jez McLennan is pulling on the number one for him. So just wanted to shout that out in the podcast and say congratulations. It's a captain, someone wearing the number one for the Port Adelaide Football Club, which always needs to be acknowledged and congratulated, because that is a prestigious position to take. And he seems like obviously watching him play last year, I was quite impressed with him as a player, and I hadn't watched him too much up until last year, but he seems like a very, very impressive fella as well. So a great representative to pull on that jumper.
Yeah, just a continued theme of change under the Josh Carr regime, in the Josh Carr era. And funnily enough, as watchers of the season launch found out, Jacob Surgeon tried to recruit him while coaching North Adelaide. So a good kind of reacquaintance for them, or connection for them now. He has AFL experience, where Nick Moore, for all of his talent and whatnot, and he's still on the list. He'll still be playing for Port Adelaide, relieved of that leadership position. Jez McLennan, obviously in the eyes of the coaches and whatnot, just embodies what they want moving forward in that number one jumper for the Magpies. So good luck to him, and good luck to the Magpies. It'll Soldo and everything else aside, it'll be very interesting to see how they fare, because obviously a jovial theme to our off season was that we pumped up our reserves team to make a push for the SANFL Premiership. And well, I mean, let's be honest, if the Maggies are in the grand final, it's not like we're not going to be cheering for a premiership in that regard. But just hopefully the AFL team has a modicum of success as well. But no, good on him. I look forward to seeing how he flourishes this year, and the team below him.
Absolutely. Let's get into the meat of it. We're going to look at the kind of how we're feeling about the side line by line. As people know who listened to the podcast last year, and certainly going into this year, we love kind of the kind of core of our reviews of games was a line by line review of how each line, defense, forwards, and obviously the mids would perform. And we're going to kind of look at how we're looking at it going into the season and how those lines are looking. So we'll probably start with as we often do in our reviews when the season is afoot, start with the defense, which is an interesting position, an interesting area of the field, obviously, with the big off-season news of Todd Marshall training down there and playing down there in earnest. I was down at the internal trial the other night, and he was certainly had some decent efforts down there, Toddy Marshall. He did have a little mistake in the goal square. I can't remember if he tried to dribble past it out or if he just miskicked it, but literally turned it over for a goal against Team White, as it was on the internal trial. So he did have a little moment on the night, but ultimately overall his ball use coming out of defense was good, and obviously his competing in the air and his marking was is always a feature. But Brandon Zerk-Thatcher looked all right the other night too, in the internal trial, playing on the other side. It was actually interesting because Brady Galea and Zerk-Thatcher all played in the same side in Team Black the other night. And then it was Marshall and a few others obviously playing for Team White. So it's kind of interesting that the three kind of that have been the defensive stalwarts of our past 2 years were in the same team the other night. Kind of how are you feeling about the defensive area with kind of, because I think it's an area that if you weren't talking about Todd Marshall, then you'd kind of be like, oh, it's more or less the same and we just need to play better and yada, yada, yada. But Todd Marshall's really thrown a kind of a wild card into the mix as to, is he genuinely going to be starting in round one? Because that probably leaves Brandon Zerk-Thatcher out of the side, and he's a kind of a player that 18 months ago we were saying this guy's the second best defender in the side outside of Relier. So a lot of things can change very quickly.
Yeah, as you know, I only got to watch a fraction of the live stream. I watched basically the first half and then I couldn't watch any more after that. I have caught up on the highlights though. And just in regards to Marshall, we've obviously discussed it. It's obviously been a common point of discussion through the fan base in the off season. I just can't help but think that we're robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit, and we're a bit
Mm-hmm.
surplus to needs in that regard. When you consider that, we're going into season 2026 with the initial frame of mind that everyone's healthy, right? So
Mm.
in that and in that regard, I think Zerk Thatcher's only just kind of come back into match play
Mm.
after having a little setback in his preseason. But with everyone being fit, Elias selects himself. Radicalia, in the glimpses that we had, were quite impressive last year, being that bigger presence
Mm.
and putting pressure on the bigger forwards, and even being
He looks
awarded
he
our
looked
most
good the
improved
other night
player.
too.
Yeah,
At the end,
yeah.
Charlie was charging out, taking marks. He looks strong and fit. Good burst of pace, kind of like he looks confident, like confident radically.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'm very, very comfortable with how he's looking going into the season.
Yeah, yeah. And if you extrapolate out what we saw of him last season, which I'm hoping that we can,
Mm.
then he's definitely in my back line. So yeah, it just comes down to a mix of Zerk Thatcher, Xavier Walsh, if he gets a taste of it. Harrison Ram has apparently had a fantastic preseason as well, and
Also looked
even
very good the other night.
has people watching him as a potential bolter for round one, depending on who's fit at the time and who's in
Mm.
form out of the preseason matches that we get to play. So the Marshall thing is interesting. There's been a lot of discussion about it. I'm hoping it's a bit of a bait and switch in some other regards that we're keeping close to our chests. And I have even seen the notion or opinion of one or some online that his we may be potentially looking at a Justin Westhoff type mix when it actually comes to the cut and thrust of the season,
Yep.
where
Yep.
I'm pretty sure in Westhoff's heyday, he was listed on a wing and he just played basically anywhere that we needed him in any situation within a game.
He was like Jackie.
Um,
He was Jackie Moon. Jackie Moon. I'm just going to rove. I'm going rogue. Like, I'm just going to
yeah,
work.
he did though. He found himself drifting up forward to kick goals. He was
Mm.
linking up in the middle, and then he was, the intercept mark down back. I remember there was a game against St Kilda in 2016, I want to say, at it probably would have been called Etihad Stadium at the time, where I'm pretty sure he did do it all. I think he kicked a
Mm.
couple of goals, and then I think we relied on him late to take just a match-saving mark. I may be embellishing in my mind the turn of events, but yeah, it was basically what we're talking about. And I've also had the opinion as an extension of that. I've seen the opinion that the reason why Marshall has been training down back so often is because forward craft is in his DNA.
Mm.
So if we are going to use him as a bit of a jack of all trades, then it's the defensive area that we need him to brush up his knowledge of. I noticed that he was taking some kick-ins, but I also noticed that Kane Farrell didn't play. So you dare say that
Yeah.
players like Kane Farrell, Logan Evans, even Alir, when we come to the home and away season, will probably take the lion's share of kick-in duties. So um, we're all intrigued of the Todd Marshall aspect of it, but I really don't want it to rock the boat if because at the end of the day, ball use out of the back 50 is great, but defenders are there to defend.
Mm.
And I'll get into the flip side of it in uh, and change last season. And just for reference, the most any of the top eight sides conceded was 1834 by the GWS Giants. So we've got 300 points roughly that we have to shave off our points against tally when it comes to this season if we're going to be a shot at finals. Um, and again, I don't play Paul when we need our defenders to defend. And I mean, the most of the chat about Marshall has been him being that intercept marker and not really him being accountable for a forward. And in my opinion, you mentioned Radicalia. We all know what Alia does. I'm pretty sure they're fairly competent at their best at both defending and intercept marking. So I'm just wary of putting our eggs too much in one basket. But again, I will, and we'll get to the next lines and some kind of theories that I have with other players. But I'm hoping that maybe it's a bit of a diversionary tactic for opposition analysis and some of our some other aspects of the ground where we're kind of implementing some other changes which may help us in that scores for column rather than the scores against.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, it did cut out there for a second there, and so I assume you were. I did catch the back end of the stats read there though, but I kind of extrapolate. I really am intrigued by kind of how you're talking about the Marshall, kind of what what you think might be happening across the off season and how they're utilizing it. Maybe a little bit of kind of foxing by the coaches. Because it is something that I am still a little bit. I have to admit, I'm a little bit uneasy with the idea of starting him in round one, and cutting off, whether it be because I think as far as just the rangy and motion and some of the things that either Zerk Thatcher if he's fit or even Harrison Ram, I still am somewhat unsure of Marshall debuting in round one as one of the three key tools down back. And I think he would. I think he'd apply himself fine, but I am still a bit uneasy with the experiment. I guess I think he's going to be great if that is genuinely what we're doing with him. I'd trust the coaches to do the right things, and they're not going to start him down there in round one if they don't think he can do the job. But again, I'm a little bit uneasy with it at this point, particularly watching the other night. I think he did fine the other night. There was just a few moments where you could tell that he was a rookie defender, so to speak, in playing in, again, intra-club trial is something that you can't take too much out of in certain aspects.
Yeah, we are playing against ourselves at
Yeah,
the end of the day. It's what we have to keep in mind too.
yeah. But there was just a few moments where it was just like you could just tell that it was rookie defender, so to speak. He did some very, very good things as well, and certainly he always applies himself well. And we're big Todd Marshall fans on this podcast. It's been said plenty of times. Unfortunately, often while we're talking about him being injured and being disappointed that he's out of the side, and certainly last year was one of those cases. But yeah, as you said, like ball use, we've got obviously we haven't even talked about. We've got some good ball users that are likely going to be kind of deputising in those halfback roles and the likes of Kane Farrell and Rosie and whoever else is back there. We've got good ball users to accompany those guys that their key role is to defend. The key tools in whoever the opposition forwards are. So I genuinely, we're going to do best 23s in a couple of weeks, but at the moment, I don't know if I have Todd Marshall in my backline. That's just where I'm sitting. It'd be interesting to see if you're in kind of this. I assume, based on the way you're talking, you kind of maybe in a similar boat just at this current moment. Doesn't mean he can't work his way in there. It's just like I still don't know if I'm there yet.
No, I agree. Yeah, Justin Westhoff role. If
Yeah.
you're telling me that's what it is, then I'm much more comfortable with that in mind. Putting him down there as a defender when he spent all that time bulking up. We know what he can do at his best as a forward when we sorely need goals with the absence of some players who have left us over the last couple of years. Yeah, yeah. I'm on the same page with you for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you feel about the kind of depth outside of obviously we've talked about the tools, but You think we're going to be seeing like a good year of Connor Rozee really just embracing that kind of role that he's been given? Because we kind of will get to the mids in a bit, but it feels like Bergman is going to spend more and more time in the mids, so he's not going to be flying off a halfback as much. And it feels like Rozee really, with his game intelligence and his leadership and what he can do, found just a niche that he can play that role that in a way that only
Yeah,
Connor Rozee can, all Australian Connor Rozee that he is. He was borderline, an all. He could have almost been an All Australian last year as well. Maybe
absolutely.
with a little bit more consistency from the team overall. Um, Obviously, the likes of Kane Farrell but yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by, really excited for the Connor Rozee opportunity again. If he is indeed going to be more or less, he'll rotate through midfield, obviously at times, but and that time could still be pretty significant. But it feels like,
Hmm.
particularly in the internal trial the other night, Bergman was taking a lot of midfield time and really having a lot of burst out of there. So it feels like the roles have reversed a little bit there, and in how they were utilizing them at the internal trial and yeah, Rosie off a halfback. I'm excited. I love that. Like for a player of his ability and his leadership, and we saw it at times last year that he could kind of almost quarterback the side from that kind of halfback position.
Yeah, I'm all for it. And I know Josh Carr likes him there, clearly,
Mm.
winning a North Adelaide premiership with a young Connor Rozee off half back. But this is also a Connor Rozee that won a game on a half back as well. So,
Mm.
uh, like the biggest, I mean, we could say this about most of our lines, but the biggest issue was injury last year. I'm pretty comfortable with our defensive group as a whole, and I think they largely got sold out by turnovers that, to be fair, they committed, and but also the midfield let them down on a lot of occasions, and you're just going to bleed points and
Mm.
goals more specifically with that being the case. So Farrell, I thought his finish to the season last year was great. I
Yeah.
think his overall season was good, but I think he actually finished the season in better shape than he started it. Um, I trust Aaliyah to go again, as I always do, industrious. Again, like with, we talk about Connor Rozee maybe getting an All Australian if potentially he started at halfback last year and the team was a bit more fortunate. And he didn't have his injury troubles as well. But Aaliyah, without a slow a score, just going under the radar as you do, finishing 13th and not winning very much. Um, And we know these guys can do at their best. I mean, like we said, we really just need Asava to stay on the park and extrapolate what we saw of him. And for me, Lockie Jones is another one that should be really coming into, like, he needs to, if he's selected, he needs to be playing well now. We've
Mm.
spoken a lot about him over the last couple of years in the way that if he comes back from injury or the start of the season proper, he takes a few rounds to really get into his work. We need that to be a bit more immediate.
Mm.
We need him to, because we know what he can do. He can burst out of the defense with his strength. He's also a pretty good kick, and albeit a St Kilda game a couple of years ago that let him down, he's actually a pretty good mark.
Yeah.
Stat that he was one of the best defensive one-on-one players in the comp by percentages. So these are all ticks in way of what we need out of our defenders this year. So on your first point, I completely agree with the Rosie thing. I'm happy, more than happy for him to stay there. If he captains better there too, which I think he even mentioned last year, and various that time in the middle where the stoppage is moving around the ground. Very comfortable with that and just need that natural progression of the players around him, like I mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. Lockie Jones' point is a very, very good one. It was also like Josh Sinn's another one that's kind of spent some time off of that halfback
Yes.
as well. And like they're two guys that are, of similar age, that both kind of really need a good year, injury free, a good run. because they're both probably borderline in the 23, but they're going to find their opportunities, particularly if Logan Evans can pop back into that mix as well. There's a few guys that kind of floating around wanting to take that next step in their career, so there's a bit of depth down there. But obviously a few guys to get ahead of, and obviously Connor Rosie, if he's fit, he's not a guy you're getting ahead of anyway. So bit of competition there, which is good at this point of the year, being that we're fit. So we should do the forwards next, I think, because then we can kind of leave the mids to last. Did you have any more thoughts on the back line? Because we'll talk about best 23s when we get closer. But
Yeah, we will. Just obviously another positional change is Jackson Mead to go back. It's a work in progress from what I can see. There was some disposals that looked really good. I think it was more when he was drifting forward. I think there was that Ollie Lord goal in the trial where Jackson Mead hit him on the chest, but that was from a kind of center position, just as where the football was on the field. So it'll be interesting to see. It's a positional change to kind of reinvigorate himself and continue his AFL career, but it seems like a work in progress to me at the moment, and not something that I'm banking on for him to be best 23 at this point in time.
Yeah, no, I agree. He certainly looked. He had some moments the other night at the intra-club trial, and love the kind of hair and look he's gone with as well. Very aesthetically pleasing. He's still fighting an uphill battle probably to if everyone's fit and firing to kind of be in the best 23 at this point. But he's certainly, again, like he's someone that can come in and play a role, because we know what AFL football is. It's a sport of attrition throughout the year. These opportunities will come, and when those opportunities come, it's up to them to kind of take it and make it a hard decision for when players are coming back, as you've taken their position. So the forwards is one of my very, very intriguing spots this year, and I found it even more so the other night down at the intra-club trial. You think about guys like Ollie Lord coming into his fourth or fifth year now. He actually had a decent night the other night with a couple of goals and certainly kicking one from 50. He had some good tackles in the forward pressure game as well. But he's a guy that, at this point, Mitch Georgiades, who didn't play obviously because he was playing State of Origin, which is just the stature that he's at. So Mitch Georgiades is nailed on in the team sheet. Jack Lukosius probably is, but I still find I think Lukosius had a good game the other night, and there were some moments where the reason that Lukosius isn't a question mark in the team sheet is because of that ball use going inside 50. He had a really good dime for, I can't remember who it was. It was Joe Richards kicked it, had a really good pass to Lukosius out in the 50 flank there, kind of right in front of the venue formerly known as the precinct, and Lukosius just popped it over the top and perfectly weighted, perfect kick. And he also tried to kick. He tried to kick a goal from inside the center square at Alberton. He made the distance, didn't have the accuracy, but it was a 70-meter bomb. So he's just you have to pick him. Outside of him and Georgiades, though, the Whitlock discussion is getting louder, and he did himself no disservice to me the other night at the intra-club trial. Whitlock is really, really impressing me, and that's where if we're looking at Georgiades and Lukosius already in the side, then at this point in time, I'm looking at Whitlock as my third tall. He impressed the hell out of me the other night. His frame is slight. He's still got a lot of growth to go as far as the AFL game goes. So whether he can get through the rigors of a full season, that remains to be seen. But I think at the moment he looks good enough to be picked for round one. He's marking, his competitiveness. He kicked 3 goals the other night, and there was a range. He crumbed one like a small forward crumbing in on the goal square, as well as kicking his set shots, a snap that kind of was a little bit belly of the ball floater, but he still snapped it and kicked it. So, and obviously kicked his set shot. He was marking the ball. He's competitive. He was down back, kind of at help defending at one point. which I've seen him do at the Sandford level last year as well, and do very, very well. Um, it's kind of to your point. We're talking about Marshall down the other end. Like Whitlock is a player that already seems to have that ability to help a little bit, but his forward craft for such a young player is really, really good. And I'm looking at him as, and I hate to say it because I actually was impressed with Lord the other night, but Lord's also had so much more time in the system. I'm already looking at Whitlock going, this guy's impressing the hell out of me, and he's only in, year 1.1 basically at this point.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And just to quickly touch on a point you made before, like that's the thing with some of these like really tall players that are coming into the competition these days is they're so tall, but they're so flexible that they are good below their knees, and
Yeah.
like it just adds another string to your bow if you can do that as a tall player. And his off season, his preseason has been very impressive. I agree, and I would agree with the fact that Lord looks good both physically and he looks good the other night. His leading was all right. His pressure was pretty good, like you said. And seniority may get him over the line
Mhm.
if they're going, you know, 1v1. But there's the investing in the stock while it's low and hoping for better returns later in Whitlock. You know, if there is that flip of a coin type moment in selection, are they going for, you know, like if the output is fairly similar, then who are they going for? And yeah, Whitlock being a young player may invigorate the team with that Gold Coast game last round being a good indicator of what youthful exuberance and invigoration can do to a side who's
Yeah.
got something to play for. Um, but I have done a bit of work just broadly over the forwards, and because it's pretty clear that we need to score more, and there is also the reality that our second highest goal scorer of last season retired, and
Mm.
that comes a year after one of our favourites and club favourites in Charlie Dixon retired the year before that. So our forward line on face value and immediate thought is lacking a lot of goal kicking.
Mm.
Like you said, George was away for state of origin duty, but um, just to go into some team stuff before going into forwards, and it's a bit of a thought experiment, but maybe also a where we think people can hold on or maybe regress. But just firstly, so the top six teams all kicked over 286 goals last season. Adelaide and Geelong were the second and third highest scoring teams last year with over 2,200 and 2,400 points themselves, kicking 339 and 356 goals between them. Port kicked 244 goals. So
Mm.
while expecting another 90 to 100 goals
And
might be a bit.
Crows and Geelong kicked about 300 goals against Port. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I had to live one of those moments live in the pouring rain,
yeah.
luckily undercover.
The Kings
Um,
in rain.
Funnily enough, though, Western Bulldogs were the highest scoring team of last season and they
Mm.
finished ninth. So take some of this with a grain of salt if you wish. However, ninth will get you a playing spot this season and beyond. So, um, which I'm sure they would have loved last year. But yeah, Adelaide and Geelong were the second and third highest scoring teams last season. Like I said, over 339 goals kicked. But, you know, your Brisbane's, Collingwood's, Fremantle's, they're the 288 to 297. And
Mm.
it equates to about 2,000 points total is what we need with behinds included. But yeah, Port kicked 244 goals and 204 behinds, which got us to 1,705 points total last year. So aiming for about 2,000 points for, keeping in mind that we've obviously got to defend. And like I
Mm.
said before, we conceded over 2,100 points last year, which is not going to get you close to the top eight
Mm.
unless you can, unless you play. I'm sure the of a shootout, but fans, you know, you probably want a bit more. Yeah, you probably want a bit more defense in your footy.
Yeah.
But basically, to split that up. We had 190 goals from our forwards. We had 36 goals from our midfielders, and we had 18 goals from our backs. 11 of which were Rosie off of a halfback slash midfielder. So
Hmm.
again, take that for what you will. The biggest issue that we have with our forward line is that, like I said, we kicked 244 goals and we need to aim for about 290. But we have 37 of those goals from last year falling out of the side in Willie Rioli, who kicked 27, and McEntee and Finlayson, who kicked 5 each. So
Hmm.
10 goals there. So I guess the thought experiment goes as we're focusing on our forwards. Hopefully, our midfielders, we hope hopefully our midfielders can go from 36 to say 50 goals
Yeah.
with a better game, with a better season, a bit better form,
Because
winning more games.
Butters only kicked one last year, didn't he?
Butters only kicked one,
Yeah.
along with Liddy, Hugh Jackson, Byzantini, and McKinley. So
Yeah.
these are some anomalies that sit within our goal kicking tally from last year, with Butters only kicking one. But on our forwards specifically, so George kicked 58.
Yeah.
So I think it would be unfair to say that he could go up from there, although we know that he has the potential to. And if he kicked a
I
bit
think
more
he can kick 70.
accurately,
I reckon he can kick 70 this year
he
myself.
could.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can necessarily expect it to come from George. It has to
Mhm.
come from other players. DBJ, when you take out Willie Rioli, was our next best goal kicker with 19. His spot in the team is always at this point of the year in the balance, it would seem, although having being one of the more senior players, offering leadership on field and generally has the output since he's moved forward, being our
Mhm.
best goal involvement player in 2024 and being our third highest goal kicker in 2025. Um, could we expect DBJ to go up from 19? Um, I'm thinking probably not. It's about a goal a game as such. I think that's a pretty fair expectation. SPP, 18 goals from about half a season, and that's probably what we're going to get from him again this year is half a season. He could probably go up a little bit depending on how he starts
Mhm.
when he comes back into the team. Joe Richards kicked 15. And this is probably one player that I'm wanting more out of this year.
Mhm.
Although I enjoyed his first season with Port Adelaide, and he featured well in the best and fairest. I think he was definitely in the top 10. I think he might have even been in the top five if I remember
I think he
correctly.
was, yeah.
So he had a good first year, but
Interesting one
with
because
15 goals to his name.
wasn't it friend of the pod Eddie Corn said that he was getting calls from Uncle Chad throughout the year because he was criticizing him in his podcast. So,
Yeah,
but
he did.
there is that kind of that thing with Joe Richards that there is some that could see. We really enjoyed his work last year, but there was also that notion that there's a little bit more you want from his, like you could just occasional misses or different things happening. You can tell he's an intelligent player and reads the field really
Mm,
well, and I think that speaks to your point that you just want to see him go up that level because you can see he kind of has that intelligence and understanding of the game. Like as you know, those players that kind of can coach a game on field, coach themselves on field because they know the game that well. Side note: Christian Moraes looks like that kind of player from the intra-club trial. I'm pretty
mm.
excited, but that's for probably more mids talk. But yeah, Richards does have another level to go to, and he's a good goal kicker when he gets the opportunities. It seems.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. That Hawthorn gather round game was a good
Yeah,
example of that. And then there was another game where he
he
kicked it from the
sealed
pocket late.
he sealed the game
GWS?
against GWS after Moraes had kicked
Yes.
his first AFL goal. I think.
Yeah.
Is that his first
Lovely
AFL goal?
moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, it was. It
yeah.
was. It was. It was. It was. Um, I think for those who have the benefit of going to watch games live, last year Joe Richards spent a lot of time working up and back, like such was the manner in which we turned the ball over and such all the fucking time last season. So hopefully, again, we're looking with full of January and February hope that we play better this year, and the ball is in our 50 with much more quality this year and gives him the opportunity to flex a bit of goal kicking muscle more so.
Mm.
I'll quickly list off the players that featured last year and the goals they kicked, and then kind of go on that thought
Yeah, no,
experiment
I'm enjoying this
from
because
there.
it is a very good way of kind of getting a binary look because it's Moneyball stuff. It's like you at some point you do have to just look at it and go, where are the goals coming from?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When like I said, we have people
Who gets
leaving
on
who
base?
kicked goals. Yeah. So after Richards, we have JHF with 14, Lord with 12, Lukosius with 8. I said McEntee and Finlayson with 5 each. Whitlock, your man, kicked 4. Joe
Mm,
Berry kicked 3. Tommy Cochran kicked 2. So that out of our forward group, our pure forwards, because I think Tommy Cochran was listed as a half, I believe he was a forward player for the Maggies.
yeah.
Um, so that's where players, that's the returns from players last year. I will also add in there though that we have acquired Corey Durden, who by all
Hmm.
accounts has had a fantastic preseason, for want of a better term. Probably showed a bit more than what some were expecting. And he kicked 14 goals from 16 games last year, so just under a goal a game. And that kind of bridges the gap left from McEntee and Finlayson, plus a few extras.
Yeah.
So
And
again,
he's got the come home
yeah,
factor as well in there. So hopefully,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
you know, yeah,
And
getting out of the
I think I meant
dysfunctional Carlton system as well.
what that does to a player is the come home factor.
Mm,
If that helps lift returns, being more comfortable, and again, Port Adelaide has generally got the best out of players that they've brought in. So I guess the key ones in that list for me and some of my thought experiments, Jack Lukosius, we've spoken about obviously last a little bit leading into this year. In games that he played with Mitch Georgiadis, Mitch still had his shots on goal that we expect from him, and Jack Lukosius also kicked his 2 goals or there and thereabouts in those games that they played together. So on face value, you would say that they don't play to the detriment of one another. So Jack
yeah.
Lukosius 8 goals from he can stay in the park for longer. Jack
Mm,
Lukosius. And that's going a long way to, I would hope as our second forward, which is probably going to be for most of the year, that he would get 30 goals.
mm,
And that's less. He kicked 2 goals a game last year, roughly,
yeah.
in the few games that he did play. Um, 30 goals in a season is less than 2 goals a game. It's
Mm.
over 1 goal a game, obviously, but I don't think it's too far-fetched to expect our second forward, which is clearly going to be pegged as, to kick 30 goals.
And the
The
way,
other player that I wanted to focus on,
mm,
and then I'll hand over to you, is Jason Horne-Francis.
mm,
And I think the foot injury may be a bit of a blessing in disguise in a year where we need goals because it may be to the detriment of his midfield minutes, his interrupted preseason, but we all know the talent that he has as a forward and that kind of scare factor that he can instill in opposition defenders. So I think in a way his in his impacted preseason may force us to play him forward more often, which may be a benefit to the team in that he can lift his goals from 14 last year to 25 this year, potentially with a bit more forward time and a bit less midfield time, a bit more burst midfield time, which may be forced due to his interrupted preseason and the return from the foot surgery. that may be something that is, like I said, a small blessing in disguise while we're all waiting for the big bad bustling Jason Horne-Francis in the middle, who also goes forward to kick goals. This year may just be a pivot in regards to the fact that we need goals and we need to kind of bring him back in a smart way.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, they seem to be thinking he's going to be he's more or less recovering okay. It was fun. I kind of as a side note to the intra club the other night, they had him essentially as the runner. So he was in and out on and off the field all night with a little walkie-talkie in hand and running messages, which I think is a really good move. I just enjoyed seeing it because I was like, this is just great stuff for more education for the game and how the game works for Jason Horne-Francis, and you'd see him having little laughs with his teammates at times and whatnot. But overall, yeah, I find it's an interesting note to make because I think he just naturally is a player that when you can take the opportunity, you rest him forward and either rest him forward and he takes his opportunities, or when a game dictates the magnet switch, you throw him down forward. Kind of like, I mean, the injury ultimately probably helped or aided that happening against West Coast last year, but he broke that game open with a broken foot with that time down forward after having had a pretty good run through the middle at times in that game as well. So, yeah, he's such a wild card kind of player. Ollie Wines kicked 3 goals in the intra club the other night too, like standing up down there forward. So you could have Ollie Wines as he becomes a real veteran midfielder as well. He might spend a bit more time, using his body. He looks really fit and with a burst of it's Ollie Wines as a veteran now, but he looks fit and ready to go. So that's another one there. Going back to Jack Lukosius though, you mentioned just like if he plays enough games and getting to that 30 goals shouldn't be hard. It's just like he's a player that the way he moves and roves around that area of like the way he can move up the field, he demands touches of the ball and he will get those touches of the ball. And you just know whatever sport you're playing, like if players like that can just find those opportunities, they're just naturally going to be, kicking goals or being involved in the goals. And we got a pretty good little. Far too little of a sample size last year, but even just that incredible goal he kicked against Fremantle, he showed some range in what he can do. And again, as I said, he lined up from inside the centre square at Alberton the other night and made the distance pretty comfortably. Obviously accuracy was the issue there, but he's kind of he'll be a real weapon. So, if Georgiades can get to near or around about the same number, and then you have Jack Lukosius pop up with at least 30, then you're looking at you could look at 80 to 100, 80 as a low number to 100 goals between those two. If you have Georgiades go 65 and Lukosius go 35 in the like a good scenario, that's 100, and Georgiades doesn't need to go much more than he did last year to get to 65. And he had the opportunities to get 65 last year. He had plenty of opportunities to do that. And as you said, Lukosius, based on his goals a game, if he plays consistently, you can almost say that he's probably going to kick a few more than the goals a game he went at. And then you get into 30, 35. So the biggest question is that those small forwards probably supporting them, because I'm actually pretty comfortable with the depth at the talls. It is Darcy Byrne-Jones. Can he stay at the levels he was at and maybe even add a couple of goals? The Joe Richards, obviously Corey Durden, we haven't seen play in the Port system, but I am excited for what he can provide. I think the big one that I'm really, really excited for this year is Joe Berry. He's a lot of people are training the house down at this time of year, but Joe Berry actually, based on what we've seen and how I looked at how he played the other night, he had
there's no house left.
Yes, yeah. The house is, almost underground at this point. It's Cooper Petey. He's. We saw him actually have some very, very good stats-heavy games in the Sandful last year. Once he kind of hit the ground running in the Sandful after getting his start at the AFL level, he looks fitter. He looks, and there's a confidence and a swagger about how he went about it the other night, which I find really, really tantalizing. I find just when a player, it's hard to describe, but I know you're nodding because you already know what I mean. He just the way he's going about it. When he cooked, I can't remember who it was, but someone put a ball over the top for Joe Berry's goal, which is in the highlights package that Port Adelaide posted on the website. Um, Someone put a ball just into the forward 50, and Berry just cooked the guy that was with him. I can't remember who it was, but he cooked him for pace and speed, gathered the ball really cleanly, and finished it off. Arguably, the thing that was the most dicey was the fact he finished it and kind of close to the post, but it was still a goal.
Post, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a swagger about him, and for a player that obviously was our first pick in the previous draft. Is somewhat controversially for some, not really, but it was an interesting draft. He's showing everything and more in this offseason, and that could be the wild card. That doesn't even that's obviously the forward line probably mostly this year, but the what he can provide is going to be quite intriguing. Not just as a forward as well, the way he's moving in this offseason.
Yeah, he's got everyone's tongues wagging, that's for sure, just a youthful prospect that is the shining light for the next phase of Port Adelaide football. But yeah, I've heard from a few
Bringing
people
honour
I've
back to
seen.
the number 5 Guernsey after Hoon and Dustin.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, fuck that guy. Uh, But I've think I've heard from a few people, Reddit opinions. He's training and he's playing in match sim a bit more like he feels like he belongs,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is kind of evident in the vision that we've been able to see. Yeah, he's just in some scrimmages and some match simulation. He's burning players, he's shaking baking, he's bursting, all the things that you would love to see in a Robbie Gray type, Robbie Gray incarnate, which he's drawn a few comparisons on and was his one of his idols growing up. So yeah, with him kicking 3 goals last year. And his end of the season was much better than the start. He started to play a bit more like he felt like he belonged. Yeah, it's definitely room for 3 goals to turn into, 5 times that at
yeah.
least if he gets regular game time. And, you know, hopefully we're settling on a team that doesn't change all that much for
Hmm.
good reason. Um, but it's going to take a collective effort. Um, you mentioned Ollie Wines before, and this has just got my head spinning because historically, Ollie hasn't been a great kick at goal. But apart from that, he's obviously a hard matchup. He's strong. He's a
Hmm.
good overhead mark. And we just brought in Will Brodie to the midfield in a group of midfielders that's pretty good. Like it's a pretty good mix. And Ollie's and Willem Drew still has to fit in there somewhere. So
Yeah.
the idea of an Ollie Wines pinch hitting forward, well, and leading into the internal trial, it was just like, can he kick though? And then he had and for you and I and anyone who's been to Alberton, particularly for the AFLW last season or in recent years, it's hard to get a gauge on kicking set shots because it is a much more wind affected exercise.
She was breezy the other night too.
Yeah, but
Beautiful
I
night,
mean,
but she was breezy.
he was kicking set. Oh, it was a great bloody night for football. But he was kicking set shots, and he's come away with three. Again, an internal trial, so you've got to take it with a grain of salt. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of Brad Ebert when he came over. He was just like this beacon of a midfielder, just outworked everyone in our club in preseason and whatnot, and kind of led the way for that. Um, you know, End of the dark ages and the Tom Rockcliffe, Travis Boak kind of was there and thereabouts. Ollie Wines was coming into his pre-Brownlow years, and Brad Ebert had to pivot and kind of go forward, which made sense to me at the time because unlike Ollie, Brad Ebert was always a fairly accurate kick and
Mm.
he could outwork players, and it was that kind of good end to his career, Brad Ebert, when he was quite serviceable when he made that shift. And I'm just wondering if there's something there for Ollie Wines to contribute. in our forward mix. What that looks like, who knows? But like I said, good mark. He's strong. He's a hard matchup. He just needs to seal the deal if he gets those opportunities. Before we move on, there is obviously the SSP conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and there is the Jaden Stevenson conversation. The will you, won't you question. And he kicked 2 goals for, I believe it was. So
Yeah.
he definitely had ample opportunities. So, albeit
It
he
was
took
just
last year off,
impressive to watch. Like it was just like
yeah,
outside of the obvious goal scoring opportunities, he was impressive. He was lively, and yeah, you noticed. Yeah. I I know I've cut in a little bit, but I'm already just like it feels like he's earned his chance at least at that spot. My opinion, based on
yeah.
what I saw the other night.
So, yeah, you and I chatted on the Christmas episode, first episode of 2026. Just basically, if you could get, I mean, I said a 30 goal forward, which is his potential for free. Why
Hmm.
wouldn't you? And I still stand by that, like I did the last 2 times I brought it up. But I've just got his career stats. Obviously, his rookie year was phenomenal. He kicked 38 goals, 24 in 2018, which was just ridiculous for a first year player.
Hmm.
Somewhat diminishing returns from there. He kicked 24 goals in 2019 and 14 goals in 2020, which, albeit was from 14 games, but he had played the 14 games in 2019 and kicked 10 more goals. So
Hmm.
2021, his first year for North Melbourne, he kicked 17 goals, 19. In 2022, though, first kind of cliff fall for him, 3 goals, 5 for the year from 16 games. And then for whatever reason, maybe a positional change, because I remember they did kind of try him on the wing at North Melbourne. And look, we're talking about, but in 6 goals, 10 before kicking 8 goals in 2024. So when we talk about potential, we have some data there that provides evidence of the output that he can provide. So it just comes down to environment, opportunity, and if he gets that spot, he ticks the boxes of the small forward vacancy that Willie has left and that need to contribute outside of Georgiadis and what we're hoping for out of Lukosius and potentially Whitlock for that other tool. But when it comes to smalls, like you mentioned, Stevenson just kind of seems like a no-brainer at this point. We mentioned he seems to have been falling over the last hurdle a few weeks back, but it turns out I think he was struggling with a bit of a hamstring injury
Yeah,
during that period of time.
it did get talked about on one of the radio shows that I listened to in the last couple of weeks that he was struggling with some kind of injury that he kind of worked through. So yeah, which if that's the only thing that's made him, you know, stumble at a hurdle, then that's a good sign that he's been able to get through that.
And
And
most hurdlers would.
yeah, yeah. If I I can't even get over a hurdle with a healthy hamstring. So um, yeah, no, it's an intriguing watch, and obviously I think the SSP window has been extended to the start of March, basically at the behest of the I assume the majority of the AFL clubs, basically saying that we want more time in case injuries happen, which is actually a very very common sense approach to that kind of that mechanism within the list management of AFL sides. So very very glad for it. So partly why we've decided we're going to do best 23s after I get back from a little jaunt to Europe because we still don't know exactly what the SSP make up or if they're and there was a couple of other guys that impressed the other night as well. Like Zato was good, and so there's the guys that we've got training on with the side at the moment are actually all kind of putting their hand up in different ways. But you'd have to say Stevenson's done himself no harm in that endeavour to make the NFL side again, and yeah, as we've said for the last couple of months, he's an incredible talent, and it'll be a very very good one to get if we can if they do decide to make that move. The midfield, I think probably the best place to start here, because there's a lot of things that are a little bit. No, actually, nothing's too elementary here. There's a lot of changes here potentially, but obviously, just start at the source at the first, formerly known as Bounce. Sweet and Vicentini are in a hell of a battle to establish who is the number one. We always have had Sweet as the incumbent number one. I still think I do have him there. He's done himself no disservice in the preseason nor in the intra-club trial, I believe. But Vicentini didn't do himself any disservice either. So it's an intriguing battle. I think Sweet, just through seniority and mostly impressive service over the last couple of years that he's been here, just has that spot. But Vicentini's breathing down his neck. And I mean, the extra spot on the bench obviously provides an intriguing aspect of possibly having, I mean, Vicentini with his, athleticism and around the ground work. There is that opportunity to play both. Where are you sitting on kind of the ruck battle at the moment, and how you would manage that with obviously the new rules I've just mentioned as well?
Yeah, it is very intriguing, particularly when you do consider that there is the notion floating around of picking two rucks with the extra bench position. I still have Sweet number one
Mm,
myself. I have thoughts, some 50, but others saying like Sweet outperformed a younger Visentini. While Visentini didn't let himself down, there's no denigration to him.
mm.
Yeah, we're talking about a game of inches potentially. I think it is being built up as a bigger contest than what it is. Um, but I think Sweet will still start as our number one ruck. But it does provide great comfort to know that our second ruck is a Jet, and he will most definitely hold up in his own right if required. Where I imagine some other clubs probably don't have that same luxury, and with the new rule in mind as well at centre bounce.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really funny considering where we were a couple of years ago, where we were, had games where it was Sam Powell Pepper was in the ruck at one point. Yeah, we've got ourselves in a very, very good position. And Jordan Sweet, I mean, Sweet looked like he'd put on, like, I don't know if he's put on any extra weight, but he looked really, really fit and toned. A lot of guys with some very, very good tans out in the field the other night too. So have enjoyed their summers. I would expect there was some very, very good oiled tanned bodies on the field the other night. So sweet being one of them, which was the point I started with before I got distracted by the aesthetic memory of that. But so Sweet looks, yeah, again, he's an incumbent, and I think just with his kind of his experience, and I just think his connection with some of those mids as well is kind of a part of that as well. Like he's shown some connection, some real connection, and abilities to kind of, and I guess it remains to be seen overall how this team is going to actually play and function in real football terms this year. And I guess that's when we get to some of the ball movement stuff, which is going to be very, very important as far as this midfield group we're talking about. I did find it interesting. I was listening to one of the you might have listened to this as well, because I know you try to catch as much of the sports radio that you can. Daniel Hoyne from Champion Data talking about how they're kind of looking at certain statistical analysis of the game and speed of ball movement being a big one that they've kind of started measuring last year, and actually worked out that because we talk about pressure a lot, and I think part of our issue with pressure rating last year was we didn't move the ball quickly, nor did we pressure the ball well. But Daniel Hoyne intriguingly brought up that speed of ball movement was very, very important for the side. Like the sides that were up at the top of the table were often moving the ball very decently quickly from front back end to front end, and actually only 2 of the last 10 premiers were top 6 in pressure rating across the year, which I thought was a really interesting aspect to kind of look at, and how we're obviously with Josh Carr coming in, and you can see there's a a more emphasis on moving the ball quickly. You could see it in the intra club the other night. There was an energy to the play. I do recall going to the internal trial last year and it being scoreless after the first quarter, and it was a real slog. So kind of there's a
Yeah,
real
wow.
there's a real point of difference to how we move the ball already, and just the internal trial and just the energy that was out there, the intensity and energy to get it to the arcs, and that's why it was quite a high scoring internal trial. There was a lot of points and it was a lot of the ball spent a lot of time inside the either 50 because the ball movement was happening quickly. And I thought that statistical analysis from Champion Data was interesting because I thought about it because I was also like, we still do like pressure, and pressure is important, but the better you move the ball, the less likely you are to require pressure consistently. The problem with us last year was we slogged the ball forward very, very slowly, and then we didn't apply enough pressure to maintain, like to try to keep the ball when we weren't moving it quick enough. So again, stats are really, really fun when you actually read into how, like, you look at how we played last year. Speed of ball movement was bad, and pressure was often. Had some moments of good pressure, but pressure wasn't good at other times, and so you can already see in the way we were playing the other night in the intra club, and obviously there's big names like Zach Butters not involved in the midfield in that intra club the other night, but Jacob Ware certainly looks to be putting his case forward to be on the wing. Bergman looks to be like really, really an intensity on him, spending a lot of time in the midfield. And when you throw the likes of Zach Butters in there, obviously Jason Horne-Francis was expected to spend a decent amount of time in there. You've obviously brought up the fact that that might be caveated by some forward time based on the injury. But Willem Drew, obviously Ollie Wines, the Will Brodie coming in as well. The midfield group is got some depth there. And how are you feeling about it as far as how it goes with this new game plan as well? Because again, that speed of ball movement was evident the other night, and kind of the Josh Carr era and him being a midfield guy from his career as well, and obviously spending a lot of time as a midfield coach previous to taking over as head coach. He's probably come in with a notion to making sure this group can stand up to modern AFL 2026 footy.
Yeah, that note that you mentioned about speed of ball movement, like it makes sense, doesn't it? You've got more one-on-ones, you're giving less time for defenses to set up,
Mm-hmm.
therefore you're kicking goals or you're scoring more points. It does make sense. So um, it's no wonder why successful teams are a bit better in that facet of the game. And Champion Data love. I didn't hear that though from your initial point. But Champion Data love to when they discover a new stat or they develop a new stat, they love to push it out there to the masses. And speed of ball movement is their newest baby
Oh,
in
and
that regard. So
I am a nuffy, and as soon as I hear new toys to play with, then I get intrigued. So it's something I'm very, very intrigued by. It'll be interesting to see how it
oh,
goes in the
yeah.
long
Oh,
term.
but
But
when they relate it to success and premierships, then you're salivating, right?
yeah,
Right? The midfield is an interesting one. I obviously went into last season going, the midfield is what's going to keep us there and thereabouts. And look, we did have a lot of injuries around the place, and yeah, last year was just a shit show all around. But with the midfield, I guess I'm just in I want you to show me when on a cold, rainy night in Stoke kind of thing.
hmm
I believe in the players. Obviously, Zach Butters, Miles Bergman flourished with that positional change last year.
that Carlton
Outside of
game
the,
is rent free in my head.
yep, that's good. And the benefit
Apart,
that we have is
was the center clearance against Adelaide not rent free in my head?
no, yeah, fuck that. I had forgotten about that, so thank you.
Unfortunately, maybe there's some PTSD and it is rent free in my head. Anyway, I'm going to stop saying
Yeah, yeah.
that.
But the benefit that we have with Bergman is that he looks to be a great in and under player. He looks to
Yeah.
be a great outside player if needed, but he also has the ability to put the clamps on an opposition player if need be. So he has all those strings to his bow. Obviously, being defensively minded from all of his time down back, but he can actually go with someone
that game against
if they have a bit of
Dawson,
speed about
Dawson in
them.
the good showdown last year, or the better
The better
the
showdown.
one that was easier to watch.
Yeah, so yeah, and Brody, by all accounts, and from the first half, it was evident, and then but
Mm,
the second half, which I wasn't able to watch, by all accounts, got plenty of the ball. He did what you would expect Will Brody to do if he is in form, and I even saw someone make the comment that it looked very 2022, like, Brody, they were a Port fan or Port affiliated, but I think it's there's a lot of AFL fantasy chat going around the place, so there's a lot of analysis at
I
the
had I
moment.
had I had Will Brody in my fantasy team in that 2022 year, so uh,
Yeah, so yeah, so like I said, Jace Burgoyne on a wing, showed a bit last year. Again, one of those players who had to be shifted around because of injury. We've got an open wing spot. Is that going to be Todd Marshall? I don't know. But like you said, Jacob Ware is putting in some hard yards. Not sold on him yet because I just don't have that much to go off of yet.
yeah,
Once we see them playing against opposition, we'll have a better idea. I'm probably more excited for player like Christian Moraes, and see where he
I'm glad you brought
takes a
that up.
step up. I'm hoping he doesn't have the sophomore sads, but just looking at the guy, I don't think, touch wood, that's going to be the case, and I'm really excited for him to take a step up because Butters is going to get a lot of attention. Bergman may get some attention, after announcing himself in
Hmm.
part last year. So again, like the forwards, it's going to take a collective effort, and uh, they need to have all their ducks in a row, because I had a lot of confidence in them last year. I wasn't. I was pretty underwhelmed as a whole, as to their output overall.
Hmm.
And yeah, hopefully, yeah, like you mentioned, JHF, while I think he could spend a bit more time forward as a necessity, we all know what he can do in the middle. So when that time comes, um, I'm looking forward to the impact that he has.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Moraes because he really impressed me at the internal the other night. He was again his reading of his game intelligence and his reading of the field and in his positional play. He was putting in some really good dinky little kicks like those 45 ones. Some really good competitive marking attempts. I don't, but just his positional play and his game awareness and his intelligence on the field was really really impressive to me. He had a couple of nice little handball chains, and he looks to have added another kind of string to his bow as far as just, and maybe not just another string to his bow. He's just uh, got the experience of a full year in the AFL system now. He's done a full preseason without that kind of new boy energy. He's come in and he looks a little like he's still very slender and small comparative to some other players, but he does look like he's put on a bit of bulk, and he's obviously taken the number 11 Guernsey this year. That's a nice little move. I think I've mentioned on the pod before, but I kind of noted on the back end of last year, he seemed to have a really, really good relationship with Boak. So whether Boak kind of took him under his wing a little bit last year, which probably helped his growth and probably his confidence as well to be kind of friends with one of the greatest of all time in Travis Boak. So Christian Moraes, I don't know if he kind of makes your first team for the year, but I think he's right there, and it's only a matter of time for him. Like it's just because you've got so many guys that are seniority ahead of him that probably just push him out. But it's only an injury or two, and then if he does get his chance, if he takes it with both hands and gives the selectors a real headache, because he does just look like he under. Again, we talked about it when he got drafted. He was very very knowledgeable about the club immediately through the emotions of draft night, and his game intelligence is just how he looks. He looks like he's enough. He's a football nuffy, but he that knows how to play
Yeah.
football, and he's
Mhm.
and again, this is a guy that was top five, top 10 rated, and then had some injury issues and whatnot in his draft year and dropped down. And we've grabbed at pick 31 or whatever it was, or was it pick 38, or did he wear 31? Now I'm he wore
Oh,
30.
yeah, I forget.
He
Who
wore
was first out of him and Whitlock?
Whitlock was first, so I think Moraes might have picked him
Maybe he was
38.
38 then.
Yeah,
Yeah, somewhere.
I've got his rookie signed draft card here somewhere, but it's yeah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm really excited for Moraes, and he's some depth there, and some very good depth because I think he could be a star in the future. Again, I don't want to put too much pressure on the kid. Not that I think the CREEDCAST is putting pressure on Port Adelaide players, so it's all good. But
No. And if
I'm
they're
right.
listening,
I'm
thank
just
you.
yeah, no, thank you, Christian. We love you, and that's the entire point here. But yeah, I'm glad you brought him up because he even before Berry the other night, he was the first one that stuck out to me because he had some moments early, and it was just link up play stuff. But you could just see the way he kind of had that. There was a little bit of leadership from what he was doing as well. He was kind of again, kind of like you mentioned, Joe Berry, like he actually felt like he belonged and was using his voice and in that, you know, when you're playing that position, you've got to be voiceful and kind of direct traffic a little bit, and he was doing that. So, you know, outside of the guys that we've obviously talked about already, I think Moraes, as you kind of intimated before, he's knocking on the door. I don't think he's in the round one team if everyone's fit, but I feel harsh leaving him out of it too because I actually think if he was in the round one team, he'd absolutely apply himself and be a credit to that team.
Yeah, it's an interesting call. Yeah, he's in that mix for that wing spot or the bench spot in competition with players like Ware, Liddy, who else has been
I mean, Josh Sinn's
up there?
uh,
Lorenz.
Sin, right? Like Sin's played a little bit up there, and Lorenz.
Um,
I don't know. Like, there's just a
I'm
lot of
I'm thinking Sin may be pegged on a half back rotation,
yeah.
or a back pocket. I know, yeah, he kind of got shifted a little bit a couple of times last year. I think that's mainly due to injury
Yeah.
and whatnot. So yeah, with Jack Watkins, how much he,
Hmm.
features this year. But again, when we're talking about best 23s, yeah, I think I'm keen for Moraes to be there if he continues in a trajectory that we think he's capable of. But it's going to be a line ball call for those types of positions where where Jacob Ware, yeah, Liddy, who had a reasonable half season last year, Lorenz, who would be wanting to take another step, McKinlay, who showed a bit in the preseason from all accounts. Yeah, there's a chunk of players who are, it seems, they're all basically fighting for the same spot. So
Mm.
that's good. It's healthy. I'll be interested to see who comes out with that spot for round one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm actually incredibly excited for kind of what this round one side shapes up to be because and yeah, we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks. I'm going away on a little holiday, leaving tomorrow, so we won't be recording for a couple of weeks. But when we get back to it, which will just be before round zero, which is obviously a week before we play, we'll have a little bit more of an idea of who. Obviously, SSP signings will be done by then if they are done, and we'll have a much more of a rounded idea of being able to actually predict a best 23, which we'll do at that time. But I'm just really excited to get to this round one time now because we've got players, obviously got new toys to play with, and whether your Durdens, your Wares, your Brodies, um, obviously some of those your Joe Berries and Lukosiuses almost still feel like new toys, even though they've been in the system for a year because we didn't see much of them. So there's a lot of new guys to play with in this system. Todd Marshall coming back in, whatever that actually ends up being. There's a lot of news, considering we're a team that didn't draft last year and didn't really make any huge recruits, apart like Durden's probably the biggest recruit. Um, there's a lot of new toys to play with, and obviously with the car factor as well, and the new coach and the new system, we've got a lot of things to be look forward to. So, and myself, I'm just looking forward to just getting this new era underway,
Woody.
and you know, racing towards that wildcard spot or hopefully better. I think this side, if it's fit, is capable of. It's February hope. I know that, but I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, well, to just as an extension of that, I would reiterate a point I made a couple of episodes ago, and that is to look at the 2024 preliminary final team and just do a little thought experiment for yourself on the ins and outs from that team. I think there's about 6 or 7 players who aren't around anymore from that side, but the bulk of it is still in around and in our best 22, best 23, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So adding some extra talent and skill and output to that side. I'm not expecting a preliminary final spot this year, but it definitely goes to show the talent that we have, and the output that we can get a decent.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Thinking about that preliminary final side too, it's just like it felt like we were on our last legs there, whereas we're looking at a side where you've got like the injection of young talent, like whether it be Whitlock or Lord coming in or whatnot. It's like rather than, and again we loved him, but Charlie Dixon on one leg at that point, like
Mhm.
you've got guys that are coming in that are fit and firing and maybe raw and make some mistakes along the way, but yeah, we've got the kind of this energy coming into the side, which is really really exciting. Really really intrigued to see how we go when games get underway, how we start utilizing that extra bench spot too, and kind of what the tactics are around that. If we do go with the two rucks, or if that's like extra run and whatnot with the midfield. But yeah, any other thoughts about kind of how our depth and our side is looking, or you're looking forward to taking a bit of a break and then getting back to it when the season is imminent?
Yeah, no, no further points for me. Just looking forward to a touchwood healthy season.
Yeah, yeah. I've got my desk is probably cheap MDF wood, but it is still wood, so I'm touching it vigorously as we close off this podcast. Yeah, no, thank you. And again, just before we close off, and we opened up the podcast with obviously the tribute to your old man, and again, I raise my beer to you, your family, and just enjoy the memories and the time with family, and um, we'll certainly be keeping him forever, like in our thoughts, but particularly the forefront of our thoughts when we're at the footy this year and going forward.
Yeah,
There will be a
absolutely.
lot of amber liquid being tipped back in his honour as we rant and rave, as you said at the start, at umpires and everything else in between as the footy season gets underway. So, yeah, no, cheers to you, mate, and cheers to your family.
Yeah, thanks, mate, and thanks everyone for joining us. Yeah, numbers have been great for the first portion of the season. First 2 episodes have gone really well. It's really humbling and really good to have a whole bunch of new people on board, and hope you continue with us in what's hopefully a better season. Yeah, just to yeah, thank you. And the first Never Tear Us Apart is probably going to be an emotional one, I would
Mm.
imagine, and the first kind of the first win, the first kind of last gasp win, which hopefully we're not involved with too many, but if we are, hopefully we're on the better side of it. Yeah,
Mm.
there's going to be a lot of emotion in season 2026 for many reasons for myself. Um, but yeah, no, I appreciate everyone jumping on board, and look, if you're a returning listener, thank you for returning. We love your support. We love the community. If you're a new listener, thank you for joining us. If you could all do us a favor and just spread the good word. Because we know there's people out there who are looking for port content, who may live in another state, for example, or who don't know about us, and we'd love to get in their ears or eyes. So, yeah, thanks again to everyone, but most in particular yourself, Dave. Um, you've been a great friend so far, and I'm looking forward to season 2026 and doing it all with you once again.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Likewise, can't wait to get into it with you, and yeah, can't wait for the season to come around. But for now, that's us done for the night, and yeah, done for a couple of weeks as I head off on a quick vacation, and Jamie enjoys some time with family, and yeah, we can't wait to be back for the season though. So, Khan the fucking pair.
Go the power.